Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I think it's pretty self-evident what we're gonna be talking about today. Hi, I'm Bayfund, and before we start, you really gotta give it up to CD Projekt Red, because what they've done for this game is the most exemplary marketing I've probably seen on anything. I mean, from a game that had a whole bunch of issues, was critically panned, and didn't really sell as much as they expected, you really wouldn't see a revival of this level. I mean, if you look at platforms like Steam, you'll see Cyberpunk as sometimes #1 as just the best seller, and this game came out like 3 years ago. So yeah, props to them for somehow deciding to make an anime about it. And this is a show that no one was really talking about. I mean, I knew that it existed, but I didn't actually care. Following the trends of video game adaptations, you know, most things are gonna end up like shit. So the fact that this one came out different is kind of a miracle, I think. I don't know how we got the blessing of having Trigger produce one of the most like aesthetically pleasing cyberpunk shows that we've ever seen in anime. Aside from like the dark, depressing ones that already exist, this was a colorful, depressing one. That makes it different. And yeah, you could say it's a sad anime. And sad show doesn't necessarily just mean like, you know, character deaths and things like that. It's a sad situation. It's a sad world because there's nothing that most people can do here. But Cyberpunk's like a real shithole of a world. I mean, it's a dystopian future where corporations run the entire world. No, we're not living in it right now. It's just kind of like, imagine if everything that's happening right now was like on steroids times 100 and after a few nuclear wars. But definitely, I would still say that this show is still a commentary on the current climate in America. I mean, if you go back and watch the trailers, you're just gonna hear the American anthem, so I'll leave it at that. It's the failures of a world that's too preoccupied in making a profit and pretty much the dehumanization of anyone that can't pay. There is so much you can just talk about here, and again, you could probably reference the game in aspects like this if you want to go more in depth with how the situation affects everyone that lives in Night City. We follow along David Martinez, which, good on us Latinos, we're still getting more representation in anime. Love to see it. And I would say David is a pretty smart kid, to an extent. You can say a lot of his decisions are dumb, but then again, he is a kid. And it's not like he's mixed with a bad crowd or anything like that. It's more that he's a troublesome guy. It's just his personality's like that. He ends up in a situation where he's just completely fed up and wants to do something. And the story really just takes off from there. And to jump into the show, you don't have to play the game. I haven't played the game. I mean, sure, there's a bunch of terminology, lore, and stuff that definitely would have helped if I actually played the game. But it didn't detract from my overall enjoyment, because I could still follow along with, like, you know, the context clues of it. If this was a show that you needed to have the previous information to understand it, that would kind of make it a pretty shit show. But no, you get the gist really easily. It's like in these 10 episodes, they knew just the right way to feed you all this information to keep you wanting more, you know? Kind of like they wanted to make you buy the game, which I caved and did end up doing. In fact, I recommend going into the show blind, because I would say if you've seen the trailers, you've probably been spoiled a lot, and if you played the game, then you probably know where the characters end up. I mean, without delving into spoilers, it's definitely a coming-of-age story. I mean, perhaps not the most honorable, but well-intentioned at the very least. I would say in the world of Cyberpunk, everything is to an extent of morally gray. And since this anime was produced by Trigger, what they do really well is in the action. I mean, the clashes that are between the characters and the gangs, or the police, or the corporations themselves, are always moving forward. The abilities that are presented in this universe allow Trigger to just, you know, go full ham and go crazy with everything that they can show. The over-the-top nature of Trigger's previous animes works perfectly here, and it really doesn't feel out of place. There are definitely dozens of other anime studios that could have made a Cyberpunk anime, but none of them could have made it like Trigger. Blood, gore, and guts, and nudity everywhere, all for us to enjoy. And just to get it said now, all of the gripes that I had about this show could have easily have been solved if the show was longer than just 10 episodes. The information and everything that they were able to cram into these episodes was fantastic, though brisk. Sometimes you do feel the pacing is going a little bit too quick, or you want to understand more about each character's backstories, but you're only going to get a handful. And when you do get backstories, it's only a small amount. You're not gonna get full exposition dumps or something like that right in your face. You're just gonna get the necessary information and just move on to the next mission. But I would say having this gripe is a good thing, because it means I actually liked and cared about these characters so much more than I expected, and I wanted to see more. If we could just get like a few episodes on each character, that would have just made the story so much more rich and fulfilling for me. I've been seeing online and a whole bunch of reviews, tweets, anything that you can see about this show, about how this show breaks them. And again, like I said with Oyasumi Punpun, I don't think, to me, that it's at that level where it can break you. It's more to the fact, like, if you haven't seen too many like sad or emotional animes, yeah, this one can definitely get to you, but it's not to the darkest or the most depressing that I've ever seen. And while the emotional, sad moments did hit me, they would have gotten me so much more if we had more time to spend with these characters. I mean, I genuinely enjoyed every character inside of the group. I mean, Lucy, Maine, David, these are the characters that we mainly focus on in like the beginning. And yes, the cast does change slightly later on, but each has their own personality quirks and you actually think that they're charming. You like seeing the characters interact with each other. And it hurts when you see where this situation is gonna go for all of them. One of the big pieces of news that I heard before starting this show was that Trigger had this lolly that they wouldn't compromise on. And when I saw it, yeah, I laughed it off and gone, that's a fantastic thing for Trigger to just stand their ground. But then when I saw the show, it made sense. She's fantastic, and I get why people like her around. I mean, definitely, the show probably wouldn't have been the same without her. And though the entire show was fantastic all the way through, I would still say the emotional peak of this was episode 6, Girl on Fire. This is what made me want to get a longer series from this Cyberpunk show, because we get more backstory on this one character, Maine. And then by the end of it, this is the one that got me the closest to like maybe even wanting to tear up. The execution of this entire story makes it probably the most perfect episode in the series. I think that the later episodes got a little bit more lost in the action than hitting the story beats. Like, they still did it fantastic, especially like that final scene, but not to the same level as this episode. But I mean, with all that violence, Trigger's Trigger. You can't really blame them for doing what they do best. The personality of everyone in the group really shines through in moments like these. And the tone of the show is immensely helped by probably my favorite aspect of the entire show, the music. I can't fucking rave enough about the ED, the OP, everything in between. Starting with Franz Ferdinand's This Fire, I generally wouldn't think that Franz Ferdinand would fit in a cyberpunk-like world, but they actually made it work. And it's incredibly catchy and it's been in my head for a very long time. The insert song, I Really Want to Stay at Your House, fucking gets you every single time. When that song starts playing, you know, oh shit, something is going the fuck down. And the one that I think is the most important to me is Let You Down. I thought this was like a song from like 2008, 2010. It gave me vibes from like FIFA or something like that. Something that you would hear in like the main credits. It was like a nostalgic feeling that was coming out of me when I first heard this song, which surprised the fuck out of me because it turns out the song came out like this year. And it's a beautiful song. I mean, at the ending of episode 1, with the buildup of this ED just coming in, it's just, oh, so good. And all the little motifs that each of the songs have, they all mean something in the story. Usually played because of a character's emotional status to someone else in the story, whether it be love or hate. You really couldn't ask for a soundtrack that was as fitting. What I do think is a little surprising is that they don't really use a lot of like J-rock or J-pop in this show. It's mostly just songs in English, which I'm not against in the slightest. In fact, I would actually like to see more English songs if they fit the vibe better. I mean, as long as we don't get to see like any AJR or something like that, it would be fantastic. Without the music, this show would not be the same for me. Having all these catchy songs in my head is definitely gonna help me not forget about the show for a very long time. And the overall aesthetic that's produced here is just so colorful, grungy, and filthy. It's so nice to see. So when you finish the show, you're probably gonna be just like me, and you're gonna buy the game just because you wanna see so much more of all of these aspects that you just saw. I haven't touched it yet because I'm afraid that I'm gonna be disappointed when I go into it, but we'll see when we get there. So yeah, that was my take on this, in my opinion, must-watch show. If you've seen it all the way through, I would love to know what your thoughts are on this. I want more people in my life that have seen this show so I can talk about it. I need to hear more people's opinions on it because in real life, I've been trying to push people to see this show more, and a lot of them still haven't. So with that, see y'all next time at the Afterlife Bar. Peace.